हेलो एंड वेलकम बैक डियर Unocoin यूजर्स टू अनदर वन ऑफ आवर एएमए सेशन। तो सबसे पहले तो आप सभी को श्री कृष्ण जन्माष्टमी की बहुत ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं। आई होप यू आर एंजॉयिंग दिस अमेजिंग फेस्टिवल विद योर लव्ड वंस टुडे एंड इन द मीन टाइम we are bringing you here this amazing AMA session on 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 an ongoing topic right now, which is Bitcoin ETFs. तो बिटकॉइन ईटीएफ पिछले कुछ दिनों से काफी ज्यादा चर्चा में चल रहे हैं, स्पेशली आफ्टर द होल ग्रे स्केल विनिंग द लॉ सूट अगेंस्ट एसईसी एंड इट वाज रियली ग्रेट। तो इस पे अब जब ये चीज पूरी ट्रेंड कर रही है तो हम ये देख रहे हैं कि लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर थिंकिंग कि ये बहुत अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी है टू मेक मनी नाउ, टू सी इफ बिटकॉइन कैन Now, to see if Bitcoin can make you a millionaire through its ETF side of the face, we have here a very special guest who you know as a Bitcoin pro and a Bitcoin maximalist, Sunny Ray, the co-founder and the president of Unocoin, your favorite crypto exchange. Hi, Sunny, how are you doing today?
Hi, Shambhavi. I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm great too. Is there any network glitch from my side? I just see a lot of,
I saw something on my
lagging.
side too. We'll just keep going, maybe keep rolling, and then I don't know if we have a problem. I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Okay, so the backend is telling us that the output is good. So, guys, if you can see and hear us properly, please hit the thumbs up button so that we can know that we are properly audible and visible to you guys. So, Sunny, you start with, this is one of the most interesting topics of the recent times. And, last week we had a little chat on this when we were doing our AMA. And it's interesting how this whole ETF hype is, it's not fading anytime soon. So, to begin with, what do you think about an ETF and what is it?
That's probably a better question. What is it? I know people are probably a bit tired of my analogies, but I'm going to start with an analogy. So my favorite type of food is Mexican food. Have you ever had like a burrito or a
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so to me, an ETF, I mean, to put it really simply, it's like the taco. It's like the thing that holds everything together, right? So inside of a taco, you'll have tomatoes, you'll have chicken and lettuce and all these other things, right? But the taco holds it all in one place. And so an ETF is similar. And so before we get into Bitcoin ETFs, right, what's like a general ETF? And a lot of people probably know, right? So one thing that I think a lot of people are aware of is mutual funds. So a mutual fund is like a basket of, investments, right? Where in different stocks and bonds, but then there'll be an active an active manager of those funds. So that will be somebody who's looking at it going, oh, okay, let's move a little bit of this stock into that one and this one into that one. And ETF is similar, but different. It's similar in the sense that it's like a basket of assets. So it might be stocks and bonds and etc. But usually it's just kind of like, it's more like it just tracks. It's like more like an indices, right? So there's no active management in the back. So again, the ETF is like a wrapper that holds, lots of different asset classes within it. And so, for example, for me, let's say I don't want to invest in any particular stock because my risk tolerance maybe isn't as high for it. I might want to get exposure to, let's say, the S&P 500 or to, bonds. And I can do that by picking a certain type of ETF. Okay, that ETF has 70% exposure to mutual funds, maybe 30% to bonds, and it kind of remains and it holds those positions, and it's not like actively being managed on a day-to-day basis. And so ETFs tend to have lower fees because there's no active management, and they're quite popular. And I think over the last 2 decades, it's kind of like known that ETFs tend to outperform mutual funds, and they're a much better bang for your buck, mainly because it's very hard to time markets, and usually and that management fee does add up year after year. So that in a nutshell is what ETF. So I think to get into the more interesting topic as well, now there's a lot of talk around an ETF being launched in the United States, and it's been going on for some time. And so I think the topic we're trying to tackle, again, I'm usually not a huge fan of making like bold promises and and things of that sort. I get rich quick because that's kind of not my forte. But is buying Bitcoin going to make you a billionaire? That's a bit of a stretch. I'd say it depends on who you are, how much. I mean, if you're if you're a trillionaire, maybe it'll help you become a billionaire. I'm kidding. But no, I'm kidding. No, it's I think it depends. It depends, right? So we always say, everyone do your own research. Past performance doesn't is not indicative of kind of the future performance. So it's very important to do your own research. But look, we've been talking about Bitcoin for 10 years. And if you listen to our videos from 2011, 2012, we were very bullish on Bitcoin. And I would almost argue that it's outperformed even our bullish case, meaning it's done far better. So I do feel confident. Okay, so now what will, let's say, the launching of an ETF, and we'll try and relate it back to somebody in India that's maybe trying to buy some Bitcoin. Like, how does it relate to them? Because again, this ETF is the ones we're talking about in the news. It's all in the US right now.
Yes.
So I think just so in a nutshell, Bitcoin is this like new asset class. It's very exciting, but it's also very confusing for the average person, and more so for institutions that have a lot of rules and regulations, right? So the average person is not used to private keys and public keys. The average person is not used to this open source network where you can check that things are going on, and they're not used to this censorship. There's all these elements to Bitcoin that kind of make it a bit different, right? I mean, very different. So what an ETF would do is it would essentially be this, you could almost consider it like a traditional vehicle that would track the price of Bitcoin, right? So these ETFs that are in the pipeline, they would, buy some Bitcoin, they would hold the Bitcoin, and as more and more people get into their ETF, on the flip side, they would buy more Bitcoin and hold it in their fund. And so I think the thing that everybody's excited about is that the launching of an ETF would mean another massive kind of sphere of interest and people and institutions and nation states and home offices and high net worth individuals. All these people that maybe have been sitting on the sideline going, this Bitcoin thing sounds super interesting, but I just don't understand it. I'm not going to go buy a Trezor Ledger wallet and try and figure out all this, right? I just want something that I understand. I want something that I can get exposure to this asset, but I don't necessarily, want to take the risks. So an ETF, fits that bill. It's like this perfect traditional vehicle that would act almost as a bridge between, Bitcoin and the masses. So again, what would it mean for the average person in India? I mean, what could it mean? Because it's not guaranteed. Is that if and we've talked about this point many times, so I won't go into it. But in our last talk, we talked about how Bitcoin is limited. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. So if you consider the fact that the number of Bitcoin is limited, and then you go, oh wait, but there's this potentially huge tsunami of demand that might come in. What does that mean for the price, right? That usually indicates that it might go up. Thank you. There you go. And if it goes up, let's say 10x, 100x, and somebody has exposure to Bitcoin, and I kind of tweeted at our Twitter like a few days ago saying, I don't know if an ETF directly will help. I mean, in the US will help someone in India. But again, if this institutional demand is real, it's like the Teslas and the El Salvadors and Argentina and all these different like major players start to get into Bitcoin, that could mean, a very kind of upward pressure like on Bitcoin price. And so if you're one of our customers and you're buying Bitcoin, and, Unocoin, we're very proud of the fact that you can take your Bitcoin and take possession of it. We don't like to throw our competitors under the bus, but we think that if you dig a bit deeper, you'll notice that a lot of our competitors don't have the ability to remove your Bitcoin or crypto off of the platform. To us, that is one of the biggest red flags ever. And in fact, if you look at FTX and any of these like giant mishaps, that's usually one of the precursors, is they first don't let you take your assets and then worse things happen. So what I always suggest is buy, we're obviously bullish on Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin and hold it yourself. Hold it in a wallet, like a cold card wallet, Trezor, Ledger. If you can't afford one of those, maybe use an old cell phone that's not connected to the internet, or maybe use an old computer that's been, formatted. But yeah, hold your own keys. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions coming, so I'm going to stop babbling. Yeah, let's maybe hit up some of those questions.
First, there's a very weird kind of a comment, which I want to, kind of. This is a word of caution, guys. Do not consider the first comment that you are reading. It's probably, I think, most certainly fake, and
Show it if
don't
it's
believe it.
fake.
No, it's actually asking like if you're interested in investing in Bitcoin
No,
with
but I'm saying, why are
investment.
we even
This is
talking
what.
about that if it's like no one can see that, right?
No. I'm just people can see that in the comment section, so I'm just giving them a word
Ah,
of
I see. Okay,
caution.
I thought they only see the stuff that we kind of bring onto the screen. But okay, that's a good point. Yeah, don't listen to any garbage that comes out there. But let instead of focusing on the ones that are, maybe not good, let's highlight some of the ones that are good.
We are taking, here is Mithilesh Shah. He's asking, he actually has a bunch of questions. So great. Mithilesh is asking here, there are BTC ETFs already there in other places like Europe and Canada. What difference can a BTC ETF in US would make in the market? I am not sure. Are there?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So there is something called, so there's a company called 3IQ in Canada. Full disclosure, I'm an advisor to 3IQ, but 3IQ actually is run by a guy named Fred. Fred actually went through hell and back to try and get that product to market. In fact, he had to take the OSC, the Ontario Securities Commission, to court, and did launch something called the QBTC, which is similar to an ETF, but it's not. It's actually set up a little bit differently, and so yeah. So from my understanding, I could be wrong, but I don't think there are other ETFs globally that have been there. There are funds and vehicles that are, let's say, accessible by the masses. We've all heard about GBTC, right? So again, that's not an ETF. They are now in the process of potentially getting an ETF, but it's not. So I guess the short answer is I don't, again, I could be wrong, right? The space moves quite quickly. It's hard to keep track of everything, but I don't believe there has been an ETF that's launched yet. And like I said, I know the Canadian ecosystem quite well. But let's just assume that it has. Let's say there is a ETF elsewhere, right? In Canada or wherever. Well, I mean, the United States is the United States. Like, they're kind of important, right? If you think about, the world reserve currency, for example, is based on the US dollar. Fidelity and the Teslas of the world and the Michael Saylors, these are all kind of the people that are spearheading some of this, like you could say, very reputable people and companies that are holding the Bitcoin flag. Most of that's happening in the US. And when you think of innovation, I think a lot of it comes out of the United States, and that's changing more and more with every year. But the US is super, super important. Like, whereas when you think of institutional capital, when you think of just the capital in the world, a lot of countries also model their systems after the United States. So they'll look at what's the US doing and then follow suit. So I think the launching of an ETF in the United States will be quite interesting. And the pink elephant, right, Shambhavi? What's the big company that recently said that they're going to launch an ETF? BlackRock, right? BlackRock.
Yes.
So if you now list the top countries in the world, I think it goes US, China, and then BlackRock in terms of assets under management or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how they even equate those two, but BlackRock is ginormous, right? And I think while it's, and I mean, he made some very, very bold statements recently. The gentleman, the CEO, I forget his name, Mr. Fink or something like that. He made some very, very bold statements about Bitcoin and how it should be, a big part of people's portfolio. And I mean, I almost couldn't even believe how bullish, and like I said, BlackRock is it's a ginormous company, right? But and while we're getting people excited about the upside of Bitcoin, I think it's important to also highlight the negative side, right? Because a lot of people are afraid, right? They consider BlackRock to be the bad guys, right? So they
Yeah, I
say,
think there was a little statement back in 2014 or 2015, something negative. I'm so sorry. I'm just fumbling so a lot today. So something negative about Bitcoin itself back in those years, and people have been. I think the Bitcoin community has been pissed ever since, and now them coming up with the Bitcoin ETF is like the biggest hypocrisy of all time.
Yeah, but it also, I don't know, one of my favorite sayings is all roads lead to Bitcoin. All roads lead to Bitcoin. You know, it's like everyone who fights Bitcoin, sooner or later they all see the light. You know what I mean? And so okay, so I guess let's talk about the downside is so what can BlackRock do? Let's say they do launch an ETF. What kind of control can they now exercise over Bitcoin? That's kind of the key question, right? And you know, I would say so that's like one attack vector, right? So can they do things now within this ETF or within this model where they can, you know, play around with the price, kind of like how people suggest they've done with gold. The other kind of downside of Bitcoin, people talk about, well, it's not private. It's like you know, it's like like people can easily track you and what you're doing with it, right? So there are these like criticisms, but what I think makes Bitcoin impervious or impenetrable by these forces is that the 21 million number, right? BlackRock can't change that. Like with all the money in the world, all the guns in the world, you cannot change that. And as you get more and more giant major players, like you've heard now, Russia saying, hey, we're going to make Bitcoin legal again. China, I think last week, hey, yeah, this thing's not illegal anymore. We're going to allow it, right? So as you start India, I think spoke really heavily at the, you know, at the BRIC summit. And I mean, they've been saying a lot of big things about crypto and the importance of, but my point is as you have these giant major players all getting into Bitcoin, the game theoretics of it is just genius, where, like I said, see, in my view, Bitcoin, the number one problem that it solves many problems, right? But the number one problem is it gives us an escape valve from inflation. Like I feel that inflation, this like money printing thing that we talk about quite often on this show, is one of the most insidious. It's one of the most, like, in my view, evil ways that our kind of life force are, because I consider, you know, money our life force, right? Like you work hard, you save money so that you don't have to work every day. So that's our life force. So the inflation, what it does is it kind of takes that ability away for us to even like, it's like you're a hamster on a wheel. You can't even get out of it. And so Bitcoin gives us that escape valve. Now, are there downsides to it? For sure. So what am I getting at? I personally have an incredible amount of confidence in kind of the Bitcoin protocol and the network and what it stands for, and the game, like I said, the theoretics of it. And so I don't know. I think I personally think this ETF news is net bullish for Bitcoin, but we'll see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guess this kind of is creating more and more demand in the world by creating more recognition for the asset, and it just serving the purpose of what we, maybe you guys, because I was like way too young back then. You guys back then bought a bunch of bitcoins, and you guys have been holding ever since. You guys, you believed in it, and it kind of just, I just want to imagine how it feels to be, such an early believer in a technology that is now doing so well. And the companies like BlackRock are now recognizing it. I mean, it's just like, it's like being proved right. And how do you feel about that? Like, I mean, I know I have a lot of questions, but I really want to know, how does it feel for you?
I probably feel similar to how you feel today. I mean, I feel like you're starting to see the light. And think about it. I mean, I would say you, maybe a few months ago, I felt like you were really starting to kind of get the Bitcoin picture. And maybe at the beginning, you're like, this Sunny guy, I need him to talk more about crypto, but he just won't. Well, is BlackRock talking about crypto? Is the new potential president of Argentina talking about crypto? Is, you know what I mean? Like everybody's talking about Bitcoin, right? How do we feel? To some extent, we feel validated, right? But here's the thing: is our kind of like bigger thesis is that we want to bring Bitcoin to billions. So all of this kind of acts as a bit of a wind in our sail, but we're not done. Unocoin has 2.5 million users. We constantly stay up at night, like trying to think about how do we get to 20 million? How do we serve 20 million people in India? How do we grow that to eventually 200 million people and beyond, right? And so from that perspective, I feel like, yeah, we're just getting warmed up, right? And I think live streams play a part in that. And I know sometimes it's hard because, we're speaking into the wind. Sometimes there's like maybe 5 or 10 guests, but now I think we're starting to get more and more. So I don't know. They say that most people, they need to see it to believe it, right? But there's a certain few that believe it before they see it, right? And I think Satvik is amongst that crew, right? I think Harish is amongst that, right? So we were amongst that, and having each other also helps, right? Because if I was just, let's say, by myself, there's a good chance I would have probably written this off, because it's like, Sunny, you're like, nobody believes you, your family, your friends, like, everyone thinks you're crazy. But when you find a few other crazy people like Satvik and Harish, and they see the vision, now all of a sudden magic starts to happen, right? And now we can kind of go beyond what we can see, and we can start going, hey, let's create the future that we want to live in for our kids, right? And that's a big thing as to why we're doing Bitcoin too, right? And then Unocoin is not because we just want to get rich or whatever. Obviously, everyone wants to get rich, but it's not just get rich at any cost. It's like, how do you serve people? How do you help people? Like the number of people that have, become financially free because of Unocoin, it's actually quite impressive, right? We talked to a lot of our customers. So that's really kind of our main goal. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Shambhavi.
Yes, absolutely. So on that note, actually, we have a very nice comment here from National Ra. He's saying he bought his first Bitcoin from Unocoin in 2018, and Unocoin is a really great platform. So thank you so much, National Ra, for this feedback. You're a very valued customer, and absolutely just keep using Bitcoin, keep using Unocoin, and trading Bitcoin like always, Sunny says. So yeah. National Ra has a question here. I know Mithilesh has a lot of other questions, so just to have a variation, I'm taking up this question. RBI also launched CBDC token. What's the matter? Kindly explain. Okay, so interesting question. By
Sorry,
the way, we
what was
have
the question? The RBI launched CBDC, and what's the question?
what's the matter? So basically, he wants to know about what is this whole fuss around CBDCs. So by the way, we have a lot of other AMAs on CBDC. Obviously, Sunny is going to answer here, but in detail, if you want more information, do go and check them out. So yeah, Sunny, over to you.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I think the general question is like, what are CBDCs about? Is that correct? CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. And essentially, and I'm just looking over here because I'm trying to find something that I might be able to share as well that maybe gives it, here, I think I found it. Can I do a screen share on this thing? I don't even know if I've ever tried to.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I was going to share something, yeah, because you know what they say, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, and a meme is worth 1,000 pictures. Have you been seeing my meme action lately?
Yeah, I have. And I mean, almost every hour there's one, I suppose.
Oh, you noticed. Yeah, Sunny Ray Show. Oh no, Sunny Ray Com is my Twitter handle. Yeah. CBDC gives more power to state and less power to you. Bitcoin gives more power to you and less power to state. That's yeah. So I mean, look, I can go into like these like long soliloquies and tangents about the difference between them. But again, so here's another one, yeah. And so by the way, I've been going crazy with memes. Shambhavi, I went from getting like almost 0 impressions a day. I mean, my Twitter game is quite weak. In the last 5 days, I got 200,000.
Oh my God, that's great.
200,000. Yeah, I mean that's kind of like kind of insane. Yeah. Okay, so choose your central bankers, right? Who do you want to be who do you want? You want CBDCs from the central banks? You want some of the crypto, or you want no central bankers, right? No central point of failure, no something that is like truly decentralized, right? So again, but just to kind of be a little bit more pointed, in my view, CBDCs is the government essentially looking at Bitcoin now for 10 years going, we can't ban this thing because the more you ban it, the bigger it gets, and people will find out a way around it. And so that's not productive. Then they're saying, okay, let's regulate the hell out of this thing so that we can, kind of bring some, like slow it down a bit. And then they're going, okay, how do we do our own version of this? How do we like the benefits, we like how it's easy to use and fast and seamless and da 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 da. How do we bring those elements to money, as they call it, right? Fiat. And how do we keep the things that we like, right? So we like to control our people. We don't like them having, let's say, for example, censorship resistance. Because if somebody, so in Canada, we had the trucker movement, right? We talked about that, I think, last year. There was a famous kind of story around a lady, a single mom, right, who sent, I think, $25 or $50 to the trucker movement and had her bank account shut down by the state, by the government. And why? Because they didn't like the truckers. Like, how is that lady's kid supposed to eat? Like, I mean, do they not care? And is she not allowed to have an opinion? Anyways, I digress. So my point is, they don't like censorship resistance, right? And on, right? There's all these like elements to it. There's 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be more. How many CBDCs will there be? Infinite. Because that's the Keynesian model of economics. It's just print, like money printer, go burr. Whereas on the Bitcoin side, there is no money printer, right? There's only so many Bitcoins. So, and I can keep going on and on. Everything that's good about Bitcoin, they've tried to remove it. Everything that's then they tried to create it in their own image, and that's kind of what CBDCs are, right? So they're and keep in mind, CBDCs are not issued by your bank; they're issued by the central bank. So what it does is it creates kind of this like direct relationship between people and the central bank and the government in this weird way where, like I said, if they don't like something that you're doing, it's very easy for them to clamp down on you. Yeah, and then they also have these time limits saying, hey, if you don't spend your rupees or dollars in a certain time, we're going to make it disappear because we want to promote people to spend money because that's what helps the economy. It's like, it's completely backwards. Like everything we've grown up with as like Indians that we learn, saving money is good, go buy gold, don't spend more. Like the Keynesian economics is completely flipped. It's all about spend everything, go into debt, like stress yourself out. Anyways, so if you like that old model, CBDCs are good. But if you're in it for the new money, go for Bitcoin.
I mean, that was a really great way. I think I'm going to use the snippet for one of our reels. So that was a great explanation. Let's take Mithileesh's another question here, Sunny. Mithileesh's second question was, in India, it is not even recognized. It is not even a recognized asset class except for the tax purpose. What is the relevance of a BTC ETF in India unless it is recognized by SEBI or RBI and the government of India? Makes total sense. What do you have to say about this?
So first of all, the comment around it's not recognized. What does that mean? I don't know, because, for example, in 2018, when the RBI, attempted to shut down the banking accounts of all the crypto companies, they definitely recognized it, as in they knew that there was something going on. When the Supreme Court overruled the RBI and said that Bitcoin companies were allowed to operate and that people in India had the ability to access Bitcoin, so that's a form of recognition. Them saying, oh, it's not valuable, but then saying they want to tax it is kind of the opposite, right? So meaning they obviously recognize it as a value, or else why would they want to tax it? More recently, there's now strict ruling around prevention of money laundering and all of this, right? So the importance of doing KYC. So again, if it wasn't something that was recognized and it wasn't some tool for doing good and bad and all that, then why would they have rule sets around that? So my point is I believe that, I mean, just a few days ago, I heard the chief finance minister talking about how, the world needs to come together and kind of come up with crypto regulations, et cetera, et cetera. So on that sense, it's recognized. So I kind of do feel like it's recognized. And now, if what you're talking about is the classification of let's say crypto or Bitcoin, that hasn't happened in India. So in the US, you're seeing now them saying things like, oh, Bitcoin is a commodity, or it's this or that, you need to get a money service. So all that stuff hasn't really come into India in a big way. We believe it's, again, a bit of a wait and watch. Let's see how the world plays out. And, and simultaneously, India is also playing a bit of a leadership role right now too, right? Like I think they're the head of the, what is it? It's WEF or IMF or one of these things. I forget. And so I do think it's coming. Now, I don't foresee an ETF launching in India in the near term. I could be wrong, right? Somebody could be working on it. We just don't know about it. But again, when we look at the Indian market, there tends to be like a 2 or 3 year lag almost, like with everything, not just Bitcoin, but like a lot of technology, just innovation. You kind of see it, and then India takes a little bit of time to kind of recognize the opportunity, but once they do, they pounce on it, right? Like the internet is a prime example. It was kind of like not really India's thing, right? The internet was really like a global thing, but then India kind of watched, and then once it became evident that the internet was going to be ginormous, India's the kind of like number one, smartphone adoption, IT, blah blah blah, programmers in the world. So I think Bitcoin is similar, as in like they're being very cautious. India is obviously a country with a lot of rules and regulations, and I think one of the reasons Unocoin's been alive for 10 years, and whereas a lot of our competitors have struggled, and again, I don't even need to talk about them. You can just check the news or check on their Twitter feed about what's going on. But Unocoin is kind of on the flip side of that, and like Bitcoiners, we tend to have a very strong position towards the government, right? We sometimes question its morality. However, we do recognize the importance of governments, that they exist. Like whether we like them or not is irrelevant. They exist, and you need to interact with them, and you need to make sure you have. We had Surreal, right? We had Surreal on one of our shows, right? Surreal and Nishit Desai. They are, in my view, probably some of the best lawyers in the world. So they came on board with Unocoin in 2013 or 2014, like way before we started, really going down this journey. And so why did we align with the best lawyers in the world? Because we knew that understanding the landscape and not just the laws, but the nature of the laws, the intention of the laws is paramount. Like, so what do I mean by that? So for example, if India is very strict around capital controls, then Unocoin as a company, we ensure that we don't violate those. Even if you can use, let's say, Bitcoin or something, we try and always stay on the right side of the law, because at the end of the day, the government is the one that sets the rules. They're the ones with the guns. They're the ones with all the power. And so our goal is not to necessarily, be against them, but it's more to, but at the same time, governments aren't really the ones who innovate. They're not the ones who create new products and services. It's the economy, it's the people, it's, companies. And so we do see Bitcoin as being inevitable, and we do believe that Bitcoin is going to become globally recognized as a reserve currency eventually. And our goal is just to make sure that India doesn't get left behind. Our goal is to make sure that, the Indian people have access to this once in a lifetime opportunity. Like Bitcoin, true. Like I've been in Bitcoin for 12 years. And every single day, like you see on these live streams, whether there's 5 people on or 50 or 100, my enthusiasm is kind of the same. Like it doesn't deter. So anyways, I'm kind of blabbing on and on, but I think hopefully that answers a little bit, or maybe it didn't.
I think, yeah, that was the answer that he was looking for, probably. But okay, so he's given a follow up question in the comment section. He's asking the queries about ETF and not BTC. So I think you covered that part as well, about the potential of ETFs in the country. So next question from him is: does the grayscale GBTC win against SEC make any difference to the BTC market? I think
That's a good question. I mean, yeah. I think, well, it did that day. For example, I saw the Bitcoin price went up quite a bit, right? Like $1,000 or $2,000. And by the way, full disclosure, GBTC is fully owned by DCG. DCG is run by a guy named Barry Silbert. Barry's been under a lot of heat, you could say, over the last year with everything going on. However, Barry was our first money in. He was our first investor back in 2014. I personally have a tremendous amount of respect for Barry. I can't speak on the issues that they're facing or whatever it is, but when it comes to Unocoin, Barry believed, in our company. You could argue before even me. So we're forever indebted. We've got guys like Tim Draper and them. So, but back to the question. So GBTC, I mean, it did have a bit of a spike in the price the day after. I think GBTC is kind of, I don't know, in my view, in the mix now, right? Like, I mean, when you have a BlackRock that's running for an ETF and you have a GBTC, yes, GBTC is ginormous and they have that reputation, and hopefully they can just kind of, maneuver and make sure that they have this leading position. But BlackRock is kind of a big deal, right? BlackRock is kind of a big deal. So I would be, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the bigger ETF story is what is really kind of developing now. And before it used to be just GBTC ETF, or are they going to get it? Or are they not? Now it's like, okay, it's BlackRock and these like ginormous entities that are trying to get it. So you think that the likelihood of us getting an ETF in 2024 is much higher. And keep in mind, what's the other thing that's happening in 2024 that we spoke about in our last call? Okay, so get this. So you're getting a halving of the Bitcoin creation every 10 minutes. At the same time, you're getting ETFs.
Exactly. I think this was in the back of my mind, and I had this, like, I'm gonna mention this in today's AMA because I've been working around these little videos to, just analyze these things and, put the content in front of the people to watch and, decide for themselves, of course. But if the ETF and the halving, they're just going to, maybe it's in March, halving is in April. Imagine the care. Obviously, do your own research, but from what I can see here, we are in for a bull run in the coming days. From what I can see, and not, it's not any advice or any statement. Just do your own research. But yeah, I think a lot of people have been talking about that, Sunny. Of course, we have a few more questions from Mithilesh here. But lately, a lot of people have been predicting these major names in the crypto industry, and not just major names in the crypto industry, but the world of finance as a whole. For example, Arthur Hayes recently said that the bull run is in progress, like it has already begun, but the market is yet to react. So there has been a statement from, of course, Kathy Wood that comes almost like every month, something around that, and there's a prediction from her coming around that. So what do you have to say around these things? Like, major people believing in these things, like the price going to a certain level, which, according to the market dynamics that we see right now, is a little hard to say. But do you think it's the unpredictability of the whole realm, or, it's the people?
What's the question in general, though? So it's like, what do I think about
Yeah,
Kathy Wood and these people talking about it?
these people talking, making various sorts of prediction, and Arthur is saying that the bull run is already here. The market is yet to react. Like, according to him, it's already in progress.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it feels like it's coming back, right? And this is hence why I've really ramped up my Twitter activities, because I don't know. I think I have a sixth sense about like figuring out when that like bottom is, but more importantly, when the bottom starts to turn into the next top. Like I feel like it, and it's like a feeling more than anything, right? But Bitcoin price is up what this year? I forget the exact percentage, but it's up, significantly. Now we haven't broken the all-time high of 69K, right? So that would obviously mark kind of the beginning of the next real bull trend. But again, if you like, we need to get back to 69, and we haven't gone the other way. So to me, it feels like the people who've been tracking Bitcoin for a long time, I think, are getting excited and they see kind of the writing on the wall. But again, it's like the future doesn't equal the past, but Satoshi is, I don't know how, like in his infinite wisdom, has engineered this like this hype machine, right? Even this like halving thing, it actually, if you think about it, kind of harms miners, I would say. Like if I was a miner and all of a sudden my income went half, I would be a bit disappointed. But it's like this marketing kind of like this viral, like word of mouth kind of thing that's built into it that reminds us every 4 years, hey, this thing is limited. This thing is limited. So I don't know. So in general, I think when it comes to everybody's comments and stuff, I'm super excited. I'm more excited about the comment in our comment section. There's someone who just said, I am first time, but BTC on Unocoin in what? In 2018.
I actually mentioned about him. He got his first set of bitcoins from Monocoin. So
Yeah.
explaining
So
to us.
so people like that, I mean, I think that's exciting, right? More than even Kathy Wood, because I kind of know what they're saying. But when you hear about people in India saying, "Hey, I bought, Bitcoin," I've heard countless number of people saying, Sunny, I got my first Bitcoin on Unocoin, or maybe on ZebPay, back in the day, because those were really the only two companies around. Hey, by the way, I'm going to be, I think, interviewing Mahin, the original founder of ZebPay
Okay, that's
on
great.
YouTube. Yeah, I can maybe try and bring him on this show if he's down for it. But I was going to
Absolutely.
just kind of do a one-on-one, and then, but yeah, Mahin and I, we have a really interesting story to share, because he was yeah, but he was a big inspiration for me way back in the day, and I
Absolutely. I
consider him
think
a
that
close
would
friend.
be great. That would be
Hmm.
phenomenal, actually. And, having more and more people from the industry just makes it even more interesting. And I just love to know the stories, basically. I'm just this person who.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're listening to this, I mean, you're probably not, but if you are, then and you're someone in the space, anyone, newbie, pro, whatever in between, reach out to us. Send me a DM or send Shambhavi a DM. We would love to interview you. I'm kind of like a broken record a bit. I sound the same every time, so we're always looking for new speakers to come on. Yeah, so
Yes,
reach out.
absolutely. So now let's just take some other comments before we have got like 15 minutes left, guys. So whatever questions you have, just drop them down in the comment section so that Sunny can take them and answer them for you. Here we have Hebros Live. Okay, he's saying, I'm a small investor. What about tax for us under 50K is my investment?
I mean, my short answer is I'm not an accountant. Talk to your accountant. Yeah, because you need to make sure you do your taxes right, because failing to file your taxes is a big thing. And from my understanding, there's no minimum amount or maximum amount beyond which taxes apply. So you have to look at there's like a capital gains type of tax, about 30%, and then at 1% TDS. At Unocoin, unlike international exchanges, we actually, kind of take care of the taxes for India within our platform, which some people might not like. But for us, again, if we want to ensure that our company can keep serving India and do the right thing, and not skirt the laws and all that, we've taken a very serious kind of position around taxation. And again, if people are against taxes, we believe that should be fought. Like, you should maybe run for prime minister and or make changes. I don't know how it would happen, but for us, it's like the rules are the rules, and we go beyond our capacity to understand what the rules are and abide by them. But yeah, but I don't know. Again, tax is not my favorite topic because I don't know much about it. But I would suggest talk to your accountant.
By the way, Bros, we have got a very nice feature integrated. We have a lot of tax calculating partners, so you can just log into your Unocoin app and you can.
ClearTax? Did we just partner with ClearTax? I think we're about to, or something. ClearTax? They're a
Then we
good
have
platform from what I've
we're
heard.
going to have more and. So what you can do
Buy
is
now.
there's a button in your Unocoin app. I'm sure the customer care people can help you find that, and you can just go over there, and they will help you calculate all your taxes. And that is a really good way to clear out your things. It's in a proper Excel sheet. You get everything sorted. So if you are facing trouble with your taxes, then that's the place. And Unocoin is the place for everything related to crypto. So be it tax or be it anything else. Okay.
You know what would be the ultimate win, though, somebody? If you know how today, I think, is the 2-year anniversary of El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. That would be the ultimate win. In fact, because of my Twitter tirade, or whatever you want to call it, my tsunami of tweets, I recently connected with Samson Mao,
Oh,
who I think was on his way to Indonesia or something. And he was, from what I understand, one of the people that kind of helped El Salvador get to where they're at. And he's focused like singularly on this idea of introducing Bitcoin to nation states. So someone from RBI is probably not listening to this, but if you're interested in talking to Samson, let us know, because I think that would be, I know it's a bit of like a wishful thinking, but look, 2 years ago, I remember on January 1st, I was on a live stream with Tone Vase, and they asked us, "Oh, what's your prediction for this year?" And I said, it's on the YouTube somewhere. And I said, I think some country is going to adopt it as legal tender. And like lo and behold, 6 months later, El Salvador did. Now that was like super lucky in terms of a guess, but I'm just putting that intention out there again, is that in India, there is that opportunity, right? And like look at what's happening with BRICS. Look at the need to move away from the US dollar. I mean, you're hearing India trading, I think, with Iran for oil and opening up corridors with Russia. And India's really, I'm really proud of the fact that my heritage is from India. I think India's like, I'm super excited about Bitcoin, but I'm equally excited about India. And the fact that Unocoin gets to sit at the intersection of Bitcoin and India, to me, is like, it's like a dream come true, And so, yeah, we really believe that, the future is very bright.
Absolutely. And I think India is sooner or later going to understand the technology. It's going to adapt to the dynamics of the whole new financial revolution, as we call it. And, it is going to happen because you guys believe in it. There are so many other people in the country who are believing in it. I think the only hurdle that the country might face is related to the financial literacy side of the things, where it might be a little hard to explain it to the people, what is Bitcoin, how to operate in it, and all the other things. But when it comes to that, we are always going to be there to educate people around that, and we just gotta do our job as we do. So absolutely. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce your name. His comment is there. Fasi Uddin, he's saying hi for me too. So he's saying hi to you, Sunny. Hi, if you have any questions, just let us know in the comments. It's just 10 minutes more and then we'll wind up our session. So now let's see, what other questions do we have?
Do you want to go to some of your questions, or no? If we have questions from
Yeah,
the people, I think
actually,
that's always more fun.
Mithilesh posted a bunch of questions, so I would love to address his questions first because
Yeah, for sure. I love this.
I can ask those questions anytime. Mithilesh here is asking. Yeah, actually, this one is a really good question. BTC 21 million limit is only on chain. These Wall Street sharks can always play with fictitious BTC on paper. What would prevent them to do it? From doing it?
That's actually a really good question.
Very often I come across this question,
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. Wow. Because technically they could potentially, pretend to have Bitcoin. Look, I think it comes down to math and accounting. I don't, like, for example, right? Actually, a perfect example, FTX, right? They didn't have the Bitcoin on the balance. They were jugad. They were doing all this random stuff, telling people something. And what happened? They were literally the number 2 exchange, if I recall, from a year ago. Like, people would be like, "Oh my God, FTX is like God." Where are they today, right? So what is it? I mean, I'm probably not supposed to swear, but they say fuck around and find out. So try, I guess, is the main thing, right? So I think, I don't know. Like I said, I think the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, unlike even gold, is that, like, all 21 million Bitcoin, it's like verifiable. Like, you can actually verify that, like, for example, with Monero, there's a lot of challenges around, well, how many Monero are there exactly? Or even Ethereum, for some people will say, well, what is the exact schedule? And it changes from time to time and this and that. But Bitcoin is known, right? And so when you have that fixed number of Bitcoin, yes, you can. So even, for example, like I said, an FTX or an exchange, they could foreseeably, create fake Bitcoin and but that's, you've essentially moved into like Ponzi territory. You've moved into, doing things that are illegal and cheating. So am I saying that it can't be done? And I mean, if you look at the history of gold, I think, you could argue that there's been a lot of this kind of foul play. But like I said, I truly believe that the physics of Bitcoin will hold up, and you can't. And if you're giving people Bitcoin and they think they have Bitcoin, but you didn't actually give them Bitcoin and you just created it out of thin air, at one point or another, there will be a redemption. There'll be a point in time where either you're going to need to withdraw your Bitcoin, or you're going to need to give people some proof that Bitcoin exists. And as a result, I think things get very hairy and scary. And so I don't think it's as possible. However, I'm not BlackRock. I'm a simpleton. So I who knows? Maybe they have lots of tricks up their sleeves, and we'll see another attack vector, play out. But I find it a little bit challenging because if BlackRock messes around, guess what? Maybe GBTC will do it right, and then there'll be competition amongst them. But again, never put it past these people. Like I do think the people who kind of control the world, they've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve. So yeah, so I think these kind of questions are great, and I think people should research them more and figure out, like, how do we keep these entities honest? And it might sound like, well, how does a random person in India or Canada or wherever do this? But you'd be surprised. Like I said, in this open source kind of global internet driven world, an individual can have a very loud voice. But I don't think I have a great answer for that one. I think it's a very good question.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times when people ask me about this, because we see the whale movement sometimes, whale and shark movement, as we call it, kind of leading the market and moving around the trends. And it is a very good question, and which I'm yet to find an answer to. And hopefully, in some more time, we'll find a more you know people oriented thing. Even though the network is very strong and the community is very strong, but this thing, it kind of still exists, but it's still better than what we have in the centralized system. It's at least it's not one person. So if it's any consolation, so there's that. Okay, so I think today was a great session, Sunny, and as I don't think there are any more questions from the audience, guys. So, okay, one last announcement before winding up our session for today. We are doing this Ask the CEO AMA with Satvik. Okay, and you guys can ask any question that you want from him. We are going to have our creatives on board. So on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to comment, you can comment and ask your question over there. Obviously, there's going to be a live and you can ask your questions there as well. But the best question is going to get a very amazing reward, which we will reveal in some time, which you're not going to reveal to you right now. So just go ahead, start looking for all the possible questions that you can ask, and be there on time on that particular day. We'll update the date and time to you. Just follow our social media channels wherever, whichever you prefer, be it Twitter, be it Instagram, be it Facebook. We are going to keep you posted. So just stay tuned. And obviously, subscribe to the YouTube channel for the regular updates on our AMAs and other videos and stuff. And yeah, stay with Unocoin. It was an amazing session, Sunny. Thank you so much for being here, and as always, you were amazing. And thank you so much, guys, for being here.
As were you. Thank you, Shambhavi.
Thank you, Sunny.
Bye-bye, everyone.